And what an incredible life Les led and has led. A daunting task. How does one find the words to express what my father was, and how do you keep the speech under 100 hours? I can assure you it won't be anywhere near that. I think I could go part of the way when I remember the words of a song from my favourite movie, Sound of Music. How do you solve a problem like Maria? How do you hold a moonbeam in your hand? Well, that was Les Jabara. How do you hold a moonbeam in your hand? Just saying Les Jabara makes people smile, even those who have only known him for a short time. Les Jabara! How are you? Les Jabara! You got to smile. Leslie Colin Joseph Jabara was born on the 3rd of March 1928 at St Kilda Hospital, which does not exist anymore, of which Les was funnily proud of, in the same quirky way as he used to win bets with people that he caught a tram in Flinders Lane. Of course, you can catch a tram in Flinders Lane between William and Market Streets, and that is what Les loved, that fact. Being a history buff and unique facts person, it was road and rail construction, politics, famous people, and jaw-defying prose and a soothing resonance of delivery. He always had a twinkle in his azure blue eyes. And I know our family and grandchildren, and I believe Judy's kids and family, would have benefited from Les's knowledge in that way. Les was also a person who loved steam trains and picking fruit for jam from old trees by abandoned houses. Even the way he said abandoned was great. It wasn't that old house over there. No, it had to be abandoned. One day as kids we were going camping and Les drove onto a property in northern New South Wales and started picking persimmons off the tree. Of course, we're all sitting hiding in the back of the car, embarrassed to all get out. Out came a hillbilly type with a shotgun, and Les said, "I thought your house was abandoned." The guy took offence, and of course Dad immediately talked the guy around, so much so that he let us camp on his property and even brought us a box of persimmons for us to take home. That's Les. When Les left school, just after the war had finished, he went to an auction of military surplus near where he lived in Albury to buy a Jeep, one Jeep, and he had £20 in his pocket. But he did not realise they were sold in lots. The auction ran at a horrendous rate, and by the time Dad had put his hand up, he bought 20 army tanks at the incredible cost of £200. An incredible amount to an 18-year-old in those days. Bert Seaton, who some of you in this audience would know, came to Les's rescue just by fate. See, that's lucky Les. And he sold those tanks almost immediately for a spectacular profit. So what did Les do? He went on buying and selling. He bought colour film, copper wire, more tanks, Jeeps, and in the end, B-24 Liberator bombers. And knowing Les, who wouldn't like to buy some B-24 Liberator today? Well, later he walked away with a healthy profit, but got into serious hot water with the Liberators as he unknowingly sold to Israeli agents who had hastily taken off in them, but were stopped whilst refuelling in Darwin. He travelled the world on Norwegian tankers after the war, when it was hard to travel any other way. However, he did start on a war bride ship that went across the Pacific to the US with roughly 600 women and 7 blokes. I can say that because Judy knows that story. A few years later, he was a bystander casualty in a ship fight when a dinner plate smashed and cut his Achilles tendon. He ended up in a hospital in Shanghai. Woke up one day with the hospital quiet except for the noise of shouting shelling from Mao Zedong's army in the suburbs outside the city. Dad climbed down from the first floor, using bed sheets tied together, dressed in a hospital smock, and limped to the Bund and the Wangpu River, where he dived into the water with a cast of thousands, hooked his arm into a rubber tire and tied to a Dutch gunboat which was escorting foreign ships down the river. Les was knifed in Stettin in Poland by desperate Germans who were wanting his jumper and ended up in a Russian jail. He got away with his life when the Anglo-Iranian oil was nationalised in Iran and later nearly froze to death hoboing on a freight train in Santa Fe, New Mexico. He was made a US citizen by private law that was signed by, interestingly enough, Eisenhower and Nixon, because his fifth great-grandfather was a signer of the Declaration of Independence, Richard Stockton of New Jersey, and through that came the JFK Democratic connection. And would you believe, when my brother Richard Stockton Jabara was born, he was made Father of the Year by the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution, and he was the best dad any kid could ever have. So many stories that Les could tell. Paul Lynch played bull fiddle, and Les tickled the ivories in the band when he boarded at Xavier, and Paul Lynch is here today. You know, this is probably not part of a eulogy, but I'm going to do it anyway in celebration of Les. When he was young, I used to watch him play. He was so fabulous a player. And he would play a song when we lived in America, but he was a really true, proud Australian. So the song, I'd watch him play, and he'd be going dum 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 dum. And he'd go, as I was coming down Conroy's Gap, I heard a maiden cry. There goes Bill the Bullocky, he's bound for Gundagai. Oh, the tough old poor old so-and-so in the Woodland on his crust. A poor tough old poor old so-and-so never drew a whip through dust. Well, the team got bogged at the 5 Mile Creek. Bill lashed and tore and cried, if Nobby don't get me out of here, I'll tattoo his bloody hide. And the oak and doke and broke the oak and poked out the leader's eye. And the dog sat on the tucker box 5 miles from Gundagai. Barry Kelly and Les got saltbuck stamped on their behinds from an angry farmer with a shotgun as they were pinching watermelons and swinging them back across the Murray and Albury. Dad flying his tiger moth under the Hume Bridge. When he tried to do it with my mother Beverly, she threatened to call off the engagement. So what did Les do? Would you believe he turned that plane around and landed? There is a first time for everything. My mother was a go-getter too. While she was pregnant with my sister Laura, she won the Caston Cup horse race. My father met my mother on the beach at Coolangatta, and her golden locks and clear blue eyes set something else erasing. Mum and Dad had a dynamic and happy relationship, and we had an amazing childhood. Mum passed away in March of 1980. A few years later, Les went on the Love Boat. Yes, the real Love Boat, as the television show, the P&O Sea Princess. Judy Canty had been booked on the same cruise by a family after the untimely death of her husband a few years before. I was told by Les it was love at first sight. And Les tripped the light fantastic, twirling Judy in a constant spin, and maybe it was the rock of the boat, but somehow she ended up with a broken arm. That might have been the end for most people, but not for Les and Judy, for they were married soon after the cast was removed. Les the salesman. To be a good salesman, you have to have enthusiasm. Can you hear Les saying it? Enthusiasm. And my father had more than enough of that. My dad, the car dealer, sold $50 sleds, as he called it, in Monrovia, California, for for Jack Buchanan, who ended up owning Sun Oil, which became Exxon. They would say, "Can I have a test drive?" Les would say, "No, because you are a deadbeat." And the guy would say, "What? I beg your pardon, how can you call me that?" "I know you're a deadbeat because you wouldn't be on this lot." He said, "Come on inside, bury your pride, and I will help you get good credit. And what we'll do is, you'll make a payment every week, and I will pick a car for you." What a way to sell cars. He sold freezer plans and bumpity bump beds. That's what I call them, you know, the ones that go. And you know, the old saying, selling freezers to the Eskimos? Well, Les actually did it. In Alaska, the biggest problem was things getting too cold, and a freezer being insulated can prevent that would not. And he not only sold the freezers, but he sold the meat and vegetables to go with it in a freezer plant. Les and his brother Ernie sold reconditioned auto transmissions at Hal's Transmissions at West Covina, where it took 40 minutes to pull out and fit a reconditioned tranny, an amazing changeover time. My father always said, "Sell the sizzle, not the steak. The sale begins when the customer says no." He had other memorable sayings such as, "For celebrations of births, marriage and death, hatches, matches and dispatches. Live fast, die young and have a good-looking corpse. Throw dirt, lose ground." And when he asked a curly question, he'd always respond, "Let me say this about that." Or, "But we need to speak to you about that." And finally, you draw more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. Although there are a few people working at the Melbourne City Council back then, when he was a councillor, who might have thought differently about that. Kids always loved Dad, doing Disney character impersonations such as Dumbo, Donald Duck and Daffy Duck, and going, "Thuffer and fuckatash." Dad always loved a party, and boy did he know how to throw a good one. There were a few people who could genuinely be called the life of a party, but Les was one of them. Les is remembered by his wife Judy, his children Lauren and myself, Richard and Shane, and his grandchildren Bree, Liam, Inga, Isabella and Mia. His sister Dolores and family, and his brother Ernie and family. Ernie was unable to make